as you know, a couple times I've asked when the people from the city come up, I've given a little resume. I did not know this all about you, Jorge. Honest to God, I'm going to read this really quickly. In fact, he was hired in May of 2014, so it's going to be 11 years this month. Yeah, okay, well, but he was hired as the Director of Public Works and Utilities and city engineer at that day, responsible for the largest city department comprised of over 150 employees. Jorge holds a BS degree, BS. Yeah, that means Bachelor of Science, not the other. Okay. But here's the important part. He is the recipient of the 2017 American Public Works Association West Coast Branch Public Works Director of the Year Award. Now that really is something. He's a licensed professional engineer in the states of Florida, Hawaii, and formerly in the territory of Guam. Prior to his tenure with the city of Dunedin, Jorge worked for Pinellas County from 2000 through 2014, holding several positions, senior engineer, director of engineering, director of operations for public works, and he spent the first half of his career working in the private sector, local and international engineering. As the Public Works and Utilities Department Director, Jorge provided direct supervision of the Dunedin's engineering division, and it goes on and on. But here we go. Prior to his appointment to Deputy City Manager, Jorge provided oversight of several municipal projects, including the refurbishment of the city's reverse osmosis water treatment plant, the new Emergency Operations Center, solid waste vehicle storage building, and various drainage and roadway improvement projects throughout the city. Jorge is responsible for oversight now of Parks and Recreation, Fire and Rescue, Public Works and Utilities, the Dunedin Library, and the city marina. He will also manage large-scale special projects, which just reminds me, I didn't shout out to Paul Stanek, who's the Public Works Director beforehand, and who keeps the water running now. So thank you, Paul. But Jorge, you're up.
Wow, that sounded like a eulogy almost.
Don't take it there.
I was about to say, you guys got stuck with the third string. Actually, it was supposed to be Commissioner St. Bergen today, but I think he's up in Wisconsin. And then Jennifer, the city manager, stepped in, but she's down in Palmetto for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council Summit this morning. Said, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. You guys stuck with me. I even thought that my lovely wife came because I was speaking, but then I realized she only came because Jorge was speaking. I'll keep it short and sweet because I know you're going to hear about some hockey later. So. I had a couple of different departments give me some brief updates. So from the city clerk's office, they would like me to remind you that the Fall Citizens Academy is opening up, or the applications have opened up, and they're open through June 20th. So far, we've got about 20 applications that we received. Last year, we got about 62. And they'll pick through a random selection once the applications are closed. And they select 24 applicants for the next round. It's a 9-week course, and it starts on September 2nd. So if you're interested, go ahead and apply. From our friends at Economic Development, we had a couple projects to update you on. The parking garage. So a design criteria package, which defines the scope of the project, has been completed and approved by the City Commission. That document is prepared in accordance with Florida statute requirements for design build projects. So the scope is for a $10 million precast concrete parking structure to be built at the northwest corner of Douglas and Scotland. The funding is coming from $1.2 million from the penny and design for design, and 8.8 and the CRA for construction. The project is going to include 192 parking spaces, EV charging stations, golf cart parking, public art, extensive landscaping, and environmentally sustainable elements. And RFQ, which is a request for qualifications to shortlist those firms that will be able to submit packages, is being reviewed by the city attorney's office and will be advertised by purchasing. The project has a fall target date for commencement of design, with construction commencing in early 2026 and hopefully finishing early 2027. That's that one. The Skinner Boulevard project, one that's near dear to me, it's right at the corner. So that project, as you know, is constructing 2 roundabouts at Douglas and Highland. It's going to include 10-foot sidewalks, 7-foot wide bike lanes, and mast arm traffic signals. So they're fast, and all 19, there'll be mast arm signals, you know, as opposed to the concrete spans with the hanging wires. So that's much more sturdy during storms. So we expect that project is actually currently ahead of schedule. Completion date is officially January of 2026, but we're hoping that they'll be open for traffic sometime around October of this year. And then it'll still continue for the landscaping components in accordance with the original design schedule, but at least it'll be open to traffic by that time. So let's see what along with the road project, we've had Duke Energy, the city paid to have Duke Energy and all the other utilities that are hanging on overhead poles. That corridor will be undergrounded. So that'll actually make the area look a whole lot nicer, and there'll be lighting consistent with what we have throughout the downtown. The downtown pocket park, that's basically the former city hall site. That's planning to go out to bid this summer. And the former Ocean Optics project, which I'll get into here in a little bit, is at 830 Douglas. It's currently being called the Main Street Exchange. That is a mixed-use project offering 35,000 square feet in retail, restaurant, market, and outdoor dining, combined with 28 apartments and 40 boutique hotel rooms. Let's see what else we have. If you listened in on a recent commission meeting, there's the Flats on Main, which is over by Lincoln's Liquor. That is a project that's being anticipated. It's affordable housing. It's going to be 2 3-story garden-style apartment buildings for basically low-income individuals. The development is going to consist of 42 one-bedroom units and 36 two-bedroom units for a total of 78. And it'll serve households with income levels ranging between 30 and 80% of the area median income, which for Dunedin is pretty high anyway. Let's see. And then 434 Skinner Boulevard, Main Street Exchange. That's, if you know where the chicken place is on Highland. It's between Highland and Douglas on the north side of the road. That is going to be a proposed 5-unit townhome project with parking underneath. Projects anyway. 1380 Pinehurst Road. It's called the Zool Avenue Rentals. It'll be 22 short-term unit rental project. That's kind of where that school used to be, between just south of San Chris, Pinehurst. Then there's 2201 Main Street. That's the Largo Medical Center. That's that area that has like the current bagel shop, and there's a restaurant building there. I'm sorry, a furniture store there. So that's going to become I'm sorry, the Largo Medical Center. That's the former. Thank you. That is the former auto exchange. So that's if you drove by, that's currently under construction. The one that I meant to say, the bagel shop, is 716 Main Street, and that's going to be a new Chase Bank facility. And then the last one that I have is 265 Causeway Boulevard. That's a recently approved mixed-use project that's going to include some townhomes, a winery, and an annex to the J Hotel. So that's that. And then from our friends at Parks and Recreation, the aquatic complex, we're in the process of developing a financing plan while the consultant Borelli and Associates works on getting us to 90% plans and cost estimates prior to review and subsequent advertisement. The Gladys Douglas Preserve Phase 2, That design service was awarded to Architects Wanamaker Jensen out of St. Pete last month during the April 15th commission meeting. And staff has conducted a kickoff meeting with the architect, and they're developing a project schedule to commence design. That project is going to include a pier, a canoe kayak launch that'll be ADA accessible, restroom facilities, picnic shelters, wildlife observation platform, 10 by 10, 2 to 3 foot elevation, parking lot and driveway, and then infrastructure and utilities, water, sewer, electric, stormwater. And then if you've noticed, Edgewater and Weaver Park, those got impacted during the hurricanes. Those playground resurfacing projects are nearing completion. Edgewater is on target to be done by the end of the day, Friday, the 23rd of this month. And Weaver should be done by Tuesday, the 20th. They've been inspected and officially completed. They'll put out public notices and notify everybody that they're now open. And the last one I have is Highlander Tennis Courts. They're in a design phase for refurbishment. That's going to consist of resurfacing, structural repairs, new shelters, benches, fencing, fabric, and we anticipate putting that out to bid in July.
Excellent. Wow.
Okay.
Stephanie joins as our sponsor today. Let's give her a hand too. And thank you, so you can eat.
Good morning, everyone. Most of the people in this room know me with my director's hat on, serving as your immediate past president. But this morning, I'm wearing a different hat. I'm Stephanie Joins with LPT Realty, and I'm proud to be sponsoring today's breakfast. There are a lot of talented realtors in our area, so instead of just telling you what I do, I want to quickly share what makes me different. First, I bring a broader perspective to the table because I serve on the board of directors for both our local association, the Suncoast Tampa Association of Realtors, and for Florida Realtors. I'm also one of only 150 key contacts in the state who meet with legislators about issues affecting property rights, insurance, and affordability. I also serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for former Pinellas, our regional planning agency focused on land use and transportation. That means I don't just follow the market. I help shape the conversations that impact buyers and sellers every day. Right now in Dunedin, we're seeing a shift. A little more inventory and slightly longer days on market. But well-priced homes are still moving quickly. Buyers are adjusting to higher interest rates, and sellers are adjusting to realistic pricing. We got a little bit spoiled during the recent record migration post-pandemic. But don't believe everything you read or see on the news. This is not a bad market, it's a strategic one. The key is having the right plan and options, which is what I help my clients create. Second, I believe every client deserves concierge level service, regardless of their price point. Whether it's a first-time buyer or a luxury waterfront seller, I treat each person with the same attention and care. I've helped families through big life changes, new marriages and divorces, growing families and goodbyes, purchasing multi-generational homes or consolidating for retirement. And every story is different. That's what makes this work so meaningful. In March, I helped a client who wanted to buy a larger home in Countryside without taking on a big mortgage. We got her under contract on the new home first, then listed her Dunedin home a week later with our fingers crossed. I was able to negotiate closing dates and a post-occupancy agreement so that she could sell her home, use those funds to buy the new one with a very small mortgage, and stay in the property for 2 extra weeks. That gave her time to install new flooring and upgrades and only move once, smooth and stress-free. Third, LPT Realty gives me tools and programs most brokerages simply don't offer. LPT actually started as a marketing company for realtors called Listing Power Tools. So everything is built around a proven research-based marketing plan that combines digital and print media to generate interest and offers. On top of that, I can present sellers with flexible solutions like cash offers, a fix now and pay later program, a sell now and move later program, various programs that take the pressure off and create more opportunity. Most of you know I've been tied to the Dunedin community for almost 25 years. I live here, I eat and drink here, and I walk Little Scruffy right here in town and in our parks. I care deeply about this community, not just the homes, but the people that live in them. At the end of the day, my business is about relationships, not transactions. My slogan says it best: innovative approaches, exceptional outcomes. If you work with nonprofits, seniors, or families going through transition, I'd love to talk about ways we can partner to support them. Real estate is often part of life's biggest moments, and I want to be a resource, not just a road. Thanks again for having me this morning. I'll be here for a few minutes after the meeting. I've got Dunedin market updates, buyer workbooks, and examples of my print marketing. Feel free to drop by there on your way out. I would love to connect. Thank you.
Now Georgianne Bissett, who used to be with the Fine Arts Center, but is the executive director of the Dunedin History Museum, will be giving. Yep. Here we go, Georgia.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I seem to have been everywhere in Dunedin. Jorge, what's the city? All these new people that will be moving in will be wonderful for the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, for the History Museum, Dunedin Cares, and for the theater that we're all hoping will be built here in Dunedin. And that gives this city everything. Now, who is the repository for keeping all that information? The Dunedin History Museum. And I know Blair was on the board. And looking around, can those stand who at one time were on the board of directors of the History Museum? No? I know Charlie right now is the treasurer helping us, and I'm the interim executive director. I actually happened to have been in Ireland last April visiting my husband's family just outside Dublin. And I had a text from Steve Beatty, who is now the chair of the History Museum, saying that the director that replaced Vinny was leaving. Could I perhaps talk to them about, the continuation of the History Museum? And I said, well, I did retire, but I have time. I do go back and forth to Pittsburgh. Those that know me well know that my dad, who will be 100 years old, October the 1st, has never lost a beat. So I go to Pittsburgh about every 8 weeks. And Rick knows this from Rotary. I'm rarely there. Where have you been? I'm in Pittsburgh with my dad. Although I do love travel. But this is about the History Museum. And the History Museum, I don't know how many of you have this book. It was written by Vinnie Luisi. It came out in 1999, and they can barely keep them on the shelves of the museum store. And what's so unique about this History Museum, unlike many of them across the country and even in the Tampa Bay area, is that we have a store, a shop, the museum shop, and hundreds of people come into it weekly, and they pay $5, which is quite a deal, to go into the museum. But what it teaches us is what people are thinking, be they residents, be they visitors, and a day doesn't go by, and Blair knows this when he was head of the board, that people are calling, I just bought this house, 1926. What can you tell me about it? Well, we all look to Vinnie Luisi, who is a consultant with the History Museum. He gives us about 30 hours a month, and then he's teaching us how to look up all this information. People are so interested. And when I'm upstairs in the attic offices, they'll call me and say, a person wants to talk to you about why is there this Scottish connection. Now, you all know, who does know the first name of Dunedin before it became Dunedin? Jorge. Jonesboro. 1870 were the first people in Dunedin, and they grew cotton. Where Bon Appetit is, that's also the first place that Dr. Meese had a sanatorium. It's amazing. So because it was named Dunedin, and what does Dunedin mean? It Castle on the Rock. And if you've been to Edinburgh in Scotland, you know the big tattoo comes from the castle. And of course, our sister city is Stirling. And the History Museum started almost 50 years ago. And sadly, people used to call it the Hysterical Society. Well, I'm glad they were hysterical, because if they weren't, then we would not have the Andrews Memorial Chapel. That's how it started. It was going to be torn down, but a group of citizens, and this is where everything comes from in our country and in our cities, is it's a group of citizens that say, you know what, we're not going to stand for that. It's going to change. They saved the Andrews Memorial Chapel. That's part of the History Museum. You may or may not know that. And we do a huge number of weddings. Marcia Goins, who runs it, every weekend has 2 to 3 weddings or christenings, or it's a fabulous chapel. And we thank the city for their help during the hurricane. It was flooded almost by 2 feet of water, but boy, they were rapid in helping us. And the History Museum has ties with every organization in the city. And we want to thank the city most of all for their partnership. Now, many who come to Christmas downtown, old-fashioned Christmas, which the city closes the streets. They close the streets for Cinco de Mayo and many, many things. And the History Museum works with them. If you've not been inside the History Museum, do come and bring your visitors. I love talking. Vinny has taught me so much about the History Museum, and it's truly important. This book that Vinny Luisi wrote takes the history from 1870 to 1999. So I think we're ready for another book, because so much has happened in this city. And listening to Jorge, I mean, you all know, many of you who've lived here for many years have seen how it's grown. I've been in Florida 21 years, and I've seen very much the changes. And I've been in Dunedin 10 years, and I live in Weybridge Woods. And I'm very proud that we work with Dunedin Cares, that I was able to make sure that the 89 houses, and people in my neighborhood say, well, why was this neighborhood here? I said, well, there was a lot of conflict back in the 80s when that neighborhood was first built. So when you're sitting at home or you have visitors, remember that Dunedin History Museum is a fabulous organization for a city of what, 35,000 people? 35,000 people live here. And I swear we've had practically every resident with their friends and visitors saying, well, why is this called Skinner Boulevard? Well, the Skinners are going to be having in June a reunion, and we're welcoming 45 members from across the United States that all came from the Skinner family. And we're able to talk to them about their great contribution, not only to the city, but to the state of Florida. And I want to thank everyone. There's quite a few of you that came to our gala, the first annual Citrus Gala. I'm wearing orange today in honor of it. Ellen's here. Thank you to Bon Appetit. You were wonderful hosts to the event. And we hope to do another one. The next big event, Back to the Future. We're doing it at the community center to raise money for the clock tower. Remember the movie Back to the Future when the lightning hit the clock tower? Well, guess what? Lightning hit the Dunedin History Museum's clock tower. How many years ago was that? 8? 7? It hasn't worked properly since. So we're raising money so that when people on the trail, they come in every day. Excuse me, you know your clock's wrong. Oh, really? Well, lightning hit twice a day. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all. And please come to the History Museum. It's your museum. It tells the story of where you live, and it has helped with the brand of delightful Dunedin. Thank you.
Waving my hand, Ken Carson come up and introduce Bobby, the Chief Tailor.
Thank you, Blair. I want to say this is the best kept secret in Dunedin. we drove around, Lily and I drove around for half an hour this morning trying to find this place. And Keith, he's, you know, even though he's a goaltender, he's, you know, bored the tools of ignorance, he's really got it up here. He made a dry run yesterday, so he'd know where the place was. Yeah. But anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. I've known Bobby for probably 70 years, maybe, well, maybe 60. And he is a goaltender, obviously, and he played in the National Hockey League for the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, where I was his trainer. He, I think, won one Stanley Cup, two Stanley Cups with the Flyers, and he's had a great career. He was on TV for a number of years down here with Rick Peckham as the color commentator, and then he moved into the studio for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he now presently is working with Phil Esposito. I'm sure everybody's heard of him. And he's working with him on radio, and he's got a lot of connections in here too. As he was telling us that his mother came from Scotland, and he was looking for and I said Joan can probably show him where it is after, if there's a flag there with his mother's flag on the name on there. But anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Bobby to Keith Taylor. He's been a friend of mine for a number of years, and he hasn't changed a bit. He's just a great person and a great storyteller. So, Keith.
$60. I woke up on January and turned 80, and I thought, good gracious, I'm an octogenarian. I didn't even know what the heck that was until I had my birthday. But yeah, Kenny and I go back a long time, and I got traded to Pittsburgh from Philadelphia in '76, I think it was. And it was really funny because we had Kenny Schinkel, who was a former player, was our coach. We had a milkman as a general manager, Ren Blair, and as you could tell by the tone of my voice, he wasn't a very popular person with me. But we got traded, and you know, the only reason why I got traded is the fact that there was a big trade. We had just won 2 Stanley Cups in Philly. Montreal beat us for the third cup, so they decided they were going to change the Flyers around, and they traded Ed Van Impe, Tom Bladen, and Ross Lonsberry to Pittsburgh for Gary Ennis, who was a goalie. So Ren Blair, in his infinite wisdom, when he did that, figured out he never had a goalie. So Keith Allen said, well, we'll give you Taylor. So I was a throw-in for that trade. I don't even know if Kenny knows that. So I went to Pittsburgh as a throw-in. It was so, but it's one of those ones where, oh, by the way, team, and that's what I call the Lightning. When you talk, everybody talks to us about from the North or from the NHL Network. You know, oh, by the way, they just won another cup. Oh, by the way, they just won another game. Or by the way, so I call us the by the way Lightning. So as you can tell, I'm not a real fan of the press in the North, but nonetheless, I could sit up here and tell you stories and stories, but I'm sure there's some questions. If you have a question, please let me ask, and I can try to answer it very truthfully. But this season was a strange one for us. Ken and I were talking about this. You know, we have all heard the word analytics. Sports is run by analytics. It's destroying baseball in my mind, as Kitty and I talked about, and it's in hockey now. When Steve Eisenman came into the Flyers, or excuse me, to the Lightning, we had one guy for analytics. Now, analytics tells you tendencies. They do it with the sliding rule and all that stuff. I don't know. They don't really actually watch the game. They just do it with some kind of numbers that they get. And We had one person. Today, we have 7 people in our analytics department, which is more than we have in our sales department. Now, and the interesting thing about it is that the biggest change now is gambling's come in. So if any of you have gone to the games and you've seen, well, this is interesting for me, the shot clock. You know, Lightning had 9 shots. Maple Leafs had 7 shots. By the time their second period starts, it's turned to 12-10. Because what they do is they have all these people up there, the off-ice officials who are not employed by the Lightning, they're employed by the league. They review everything. And they have to put down where the shot came from, what kind of a shot it was, and how many, because in the speed of the game, sometimes they miss it. But they also bet. People bet on how many shots are in the game, in the periods. So now, you know how we have gambling in football. And Mr. Bettman, in his infinite wisdom, figures that we're going to have gambling in hockey, because gambling in football put them at number 1. Like the church used to own Sunday, now it's football. So he wants to establish the fact that you can, that's why we have overtime. You know, we never used to have overtime in the day because of the schedule was so intense. You'd play 82 games and you would travel so often. And then when we moved up, and got to 32 teams, we got across country, so you have to go 3 time zones sometimes, and back-to-back games. So the traveling got really, really tough. So that's why they never had overtime. We just had a tie. Then it came down, okay, well, we'll have a 5-minute overtime. Well, if it ended in a tie, you still couldn't bet on the game because you didn't have a winner. So now that's why they have 3-on-3, then a shootout. So if you're wondering why when it all worked out to this way, it was all because gambling. Now, that sounds like, oh, you know, these guys are going to be taking over the game, and that's not the case. But the thing is that it slows the game down, and we're very fortunate that we travel by charter plane all the time. When I played, we only chartered if we had a game the very next night. We always went on commercial airlines, and of course, anytime that we were on commercial airlines, the plane was sold out because we traveled with 35 people, counting players, trainers, and all. So anyway, aside from that, to this year, what happened, we didn't have a very good playoff, but what comes out of it is we were really banged up. And a lot of times, everybody gets hurt in the playoffs. I remember when I was in Philadelphia, I finished playing Paul Holmgren, who went on later to become the general manager of the Flyers. We were playing Edmonton in the playoffs, and Paul broke a bone in his back. He missed 4 days. Not games, days. And he went and he finished the playoffs with a broken back. Well, hockey players aren't the brightest stars in the heaven. I'm proof of that because I played right up until I basically got into pro hockey without a mask. And I was telling Kenny this, I had over 50 stitches in my face and head. And I remember talking about that, and I said that to my kids. Yeah, I said, I used to look like Tony Curtis. And my kids went, who? But yeah, and then the mask came in, and in fact, my very first mask I made myself. And what you do, you put the Vaseline on your face, and you put that, the stuff that you have cast, you know, when you make cast, plaster of Paris, I guess, or whatever it's called, and you make sure you have a straw up your nose so you can breathe. You know, all these aren't the smartest guys, so we probably would have covered our nose and died, but nonetheless, it was about this thick. And so if you got hit in the head, you didn't get 25 stitches, you got 10. So now now you have so much, you look like RoboCop, really, the goalies now. I can remember when Dwayne Rolison played for us and we went to the playoffs that one year. Rolly is about as big as this stand here for the microphone. But when he put his equipment on, he looked like Man Mountain Dean. it's really hard to, our equipment, as Ken can attest to this, our pads were stuffed with deer hair. Because at the time, that was the only pretty much waterproof material that they had. So what would happen is, and now the guys have 3 or 4 sets of equipment. We had 1. And by the end of the season, the deer hair would start to settle down to your ankles. So in other words, our pads looked like Popeye's forearms. The bottom was really big ones like this. So we had to wear, I used to have to cut off old shin pads and put it underneath the pads to help ease the pain when it got hit by it. Now, you know how they play this butterfly style, and they all, we never went down too often because we never had any padding from here up. My chest protector was one that a baseball catcher would use. It's about this thick. Our arm pads, now if you guys, any of you were the hunters, you know that quilted underwear you'd wear in the winter to go out to keep warm? That was our padding. So we basically, you had to catch everything because it really hurt there. And then we never had a mask. So now, I mean, they got all this equipment like you can't believe, and they still get hurt. You know, these guys now, like, I can remember playing with the coach, and he was really happy that we got in shape by Christmas. And now this body fat, they pinch you all the time. You know, they have this off-ice training, like Kucherov right now is back to training. You know, you take a week off and he'll go right back to training. I've never seen a person work hard at his craft as this young guy. He's a tremendous player, but I just say, you know, Coach, you got to take a day off once in a while, smell some roses. He looked at me, he says, what are roses, Chief? But no, so anyway, we played. Victor Hammond had a fractured foot. Sorelli's knee, he twisted, it was a badly sprained ligament. And I'm not exaggerating, it was like this. And he played the rest of there. Glendinning had a fractured shoulder. The new kid who got that from Utah, he had this strange blood disease. I don't know, you know, and they found it, like, I don't know how they found it, but had they not cured it, he could have lost his leg. So he never got to play in the playoffs. And then we had Coach had a broken hand. Let me think of that. When we had all the list of injuries go all the way down, and these guys keep playing. And the only reason why I bring that up is because I always make fun of baseball, Kenny, as you well know, but baseball was my favorite sport growing up. I loved it to death. If I knew geography, I'd have been playing baseball. I thought that Pepperdine was in Utah. And the reason I knew that was when I was a kid and playing baseball, we had this semi-pro baseball league up in Calgary. And there was only 3 Canadians. They brought all these kids up from the United States from college and played. There's 3 of us that played in that league. And it was an amateur league. And they paid us $200 a week. Well, they had to hand out towels or we had to groom the stadium. That's how they got around it. And so I heard my manager who was in Calgary talking to the manager who was in Edmonton at the time. And he was the head coach at Pepperdine. And they were talking about his baseball school. Now you remember, I was also a goalie without a mask. So not the sharpest knives in the drawer. And he's talking about his school in Salt Lake. So I'm thinking, Pepperdine's got to be in Salt Lake. So at the time, there was only 6 teams in the league and we never had a draft. So you never went to a training camp until you're like 20 or 21 years of age after you're through junior age. So they came to me when I was 18 and said, here's another, I'll backtrack. Because there was no draft, if you were in an area that a National League team had a farm team. Now in Calgary, we were the farm team of Chicago Blackhawks. So everybody within a 25-mile radius that was born and raised and could play hockey was automatically Chicago property. Edmonton was Detroit. Bill and I laugh about it because he was in Sault Ste. Marie, which is down east, and that was a farm team of Chicago, so he was automatically Chicago property. But he's an old farmer, he's 3 years older than me, he's 83. Anyway, so I figured, okay, and then I got offered that baseball scholarship and going, I don't know if I'm further advanced in hockey or baseball. Is it Utah? Oh, there's a Salt Lake and Mormons in Utah. My girlfriend all through high school was Mormon. I'm not too sure about going to there. So I took hockey. And it was fortunate for me, I made a pretty good choice because I only wanted to play sports to get my college degree. My dad was a janitor. He was never allowed, he couldn't put me through school, so sports would. After all was done, won the cups, went into broadcasting. We're driving up. We had a day off in California. We were going to I said to our producer, let's drive up the Pacific Coast Highway and go see our owner who just bought a house in Malibu. So we're driving up the road and we took 3 of the players. We took the Sutter twins, Kenny and Shell Samuelson with us. And Big Sam is 6'6", and we had him in the back seat of the Volkswagen. So my producer was driving and Sammy's legs were up this side of the door and over the seat in front of me. Anyway, as we're going up and all of a sudden we get to Malibu, I yell out, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car. So everybody jumps out like, what's wrong, what's wrong? I said, this is where Pepperdine is? It looked like a housing development. It's such a beautiful campus. Ballpark, if you hit a home run in right field, was into the Pacific Ocean. I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. So the funny, and everybody's, oh, you're such an idiot. So I'm telling this story to Joe McGrain, or to Joe McGrain, the first color analyst for the Devil Rays, and he is also a pitcher for the White Sox and the Cardinals. And Casey Weldon, the quarterback for Washington, and he went to USF or to FSU. Joe was laying on the ground in Hattrick's Tavern, almost peeing his pants laughing. And a 6'4" guy, 230 pounds. I'm telling him, get up, you big dope. That's the general way I called him. It was something a little bit more bleak. It wasn't that funny. And Casey, and they're laughing like crazy. So 10 days later, Casey Weldon calls me. He says, Chief, why don't you do me a favor? I said, sure, Casey, what would you like me to do? What do you need done? He says, well, my daughter just got a full ride for volleyball to Pepperdine. I wonder if you could tell her where it is. Anyway, is there any questions for you, like about the lightning or where we're going or what we're doing or anything like that? I'll answer the best way I can. Chief? Oh, that's a long story. Because I had some dark hair, high cheekbones, and olive skin, and my mom and dad are both from Scotland. And we had a reporter when I played in Quebec, in the minor leagues in Quebec. We had to send a player all the time, once a month, and it would be a press conference, and they would talk to us. Now, Quebec City is 90% French speaking. So they sent myself and the guy by the name of Dunk Wilson, the goalie, and a reporter came up to me and said, Bobby's in Troubadour in Indiana. Well, the wrong person to be standing beside me was Dunk. I said, no, I don't think so. I mean, business way back in my background. Well, Dunk couldn't. He came back right away. As soon as I walked into practice the next day, here comes that Indian. First started out as Savage. Then it became Tonto. Then it became Chief. And Bernie Todd, who was my partner in Philly, would just call me Chef because it was the French pronunciation of Chief, right? So I have to spend 20 minutes a day 20 minutes of time and everybody would be asked the same question. So it got a lot easier to say, oh yeah, Blackfoot. Because growing up in Calgary, we had the Blackfoot, the Cree, and the Sarcee all were in the reservations all around the city. So it was a lot easier to say a Blackfoot. Now, Father, you would know this. Once you start to lie, you perpetuate things that just grows and grows and grows. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. So what happened, the chief of the Delaware Indians, when I was playing in Philly, came up and they came in the room and they gave me this beautiful beaded and made me an honorary chief of the Delawares. Now I'm really feeling guilty. And so anyway, why I stuck and why I stopped trying to explain this whole story like I'm doing now, it takes forever. Wayne Hillman was a player for us, and Kenny would remember his name. He was a defenseman. His wife was Teresa. So we used to, after the games, we'd all meet at this watering hole called Rex's. So Teresa would always come over and says, "So Chief, what tribe are you really from?" Teresa, well, I have to tell you again, I'm basically not like baby finger. But she's, oh yes you are. This went on for 15 minutes. Yes you are, no I'm not. Yes you are, no I'm not. Finally I said, you're right. See, I told you. So that's when it stopped. That I just said, yeah. But it's really hard because now get out of that one. And I can't get out of that one. Anyway, has anyone got a question? Yes.
Women in hockey, I have two great granddaughters. They're 10 years old that are wild and crazy hockey players.
Yeah.
What's going on with the girls?
Well, we got them coaching them in the NHL. There's a assistant coach is in Seattle right now, lady. We have a number of them in broadcasting, the Canadian networks. When the TNT or SBN comes down to do the games, they have color analysts are and it's more and more this girl that or woman rather that is the assistant in Seattle probably will become the first head coach in the National Hockey League. Yeah, but I still can't wrap my ears around the high voice when you listen to the play-by-play in the color. You know, you're so used to that. The all screaming and you know with the Michigan, you gotta really be careful because he really screams when we score. So, but yeah, it's getting. You see it a lot. We have a skating instructor, Barb Underhall, who's absolutely incredible. When I watched, when Brady Point came up to play and made our team, he had great straight ahead speed, but his quickness and lateral movement was really not very good. And she worked with him and worked with him. Now he's one of the premier skaters. Sorelli is another one. You know, when he skated up the ice, we had to replace the divots. His feet were so heavy on his. Now he's got speed like I can't get over. She's incredible. And she's working with this young kid, Kiki, now. If he gets his quickness down, we've got a really good player. See, hockey, to me, you know, the straight head speed's easy, but it takes a while to get your speed. You have to be very quick from side to side and agile. And that's what makes you a really difficult player to check. And that's why Point's so good. And Sorelli got better because of that. And this kid will be really good if he really works at it. But as your case in point, there, you know, she was a figure skater. And they teach you how to use your edges better than you did just regular skating. Because they, you know, how they do their sharp turns and their spins and all that. And it's the way you hold your feet or you move your feet, how your balance is. So she works with all the guys like that. And the guys that really work at it become tremendous skaters. Yes.
Hockey's so combustive in the collisions. Players cage out pretty quickly relative to tend to have their players get 2 or 3 or 4 years older, and there's more action, more injuries. And then the team performance falls off. And other teams are on the rise. Where do you see the Lightning, in the next couple of years?
One of the things that has impressed me a lot about Julian Brisebois is the fact that, and a lot of people get upset about that because, is that he has a core with Point, Kucherov, Edmund, Cirelli. They were the guys that came up in our organization. And he traded to get players like this Brendan Hagel, Gensel trading Stamkos, which was a shock to me. Just in case in point in this talk about Stammer, why he went there. Nashville gave him a 4-year contract of $32 million. It was 4 years. Now, this is where agents, to me, can really spoil a person and make it, because the players listen to agents like their confessional, and which is wrong because those guys are all out for is this. The Lightning offered him the same amount of money, but it was going to be over 8 years. And I think what happened, and this is what surprises me, because Steven's not that kind of a kid, but they signed that Gunsel a big contract. They did Hedman a big contract, and they really kind of put Stammer on the back burner. And I think it kind of really hurt his feelings, type of thing, which surprises me because I didn't think he was that way. But I think the agent was in his ear, so he got the money. But the problem we had with him was he really became much of a power play specialist. He scored a lot of goals, but I don't know how the plus minus works. He was the highest minus on our team at minus 27. So outside of being on the power play, he was on the ice for 27 more goals in the opposition than he does that he scored. So at the time, we had to get better 5-on-5. Special teams can help you get over the hump, but 5-on-5 because it's the meat and potatoes of how you play the game. And we got a lot better at 5-on-5 because of that trade. I hate to say it, but that's why. Yes. Anyway, I don't want to, I could go on and on, as Kenny would tell you, but thank you for having me. I hope some of the funny stories that happened, there's more stuff that happened back in the day, like, and one time we'll get Phil out here too, then he can really tell some stories. You'd have to have a beeper. Thank you very much.